Hello everyone, this is Mike History 2, and welcome to Christopher Columbus Part 2. So last time I talked about Christopher Columbus's early life, and in this video I'll talk about, of course, what he's most famous for, so his voyages of exploration. So on the evening of August 3rd, 1492, Columbus left Palos de la Frontera with 3 ships. The largest was a carrack, the Santa Maria, owned and captained by Juan de la Cosa, and under Columbus's direct command. The other 2 were smaller caravels, the Pinta and the Niña, piloted by the Pinzon brothers. Columbus first sailed to the Canary Islands. There he restocked provisions and made repairs, then departed from San Sebastián de la Gomera on September 6th for what would turn out to be a 5-week voyage across the ocean. On the 7th of October, the crew spotted immense flocks of birds. On the 11th of October, Columbus changed the fleet's course to due west and sailed through the night, believing land was soon to be found. At around 2 o'clock in the following morning, a lookout on the Pinta, Rodrigo de Triana, spotted land. The captain of the Pinta, Martín Alonso Pinzon, verified the sight of land and told Columbus. However, Columbus later claimed that he'd already seen a light on the land a few hours earlier, therefore claimed for himself the lifetime pension promised by Ferdinand and Isabella to the first person to sight land. Columbus called this island, in what is now the Bahamas, San Salvador. Christopher Columbus called the inhabitants of the lands that he visited Los Indios, which is Spanish for the Indians. He initially encountered the Lucayan, Taino, and Arawak peoples. Noting their gold ear ornaments, Columbus took some of the Arawaks prisoner and insisted that they guide him to the source of the gold. Columbus knew that their primitive weapons and military tactics made the natives susceptible to easy conquest, writing that these people are very simple in warlike matters. I could conquer the whole of them with 50 men and govern them as I pleased. Now, of course, luckily we know that the Europeans would never do such a thing and that they wouldn't take over the entire continent of North and South America, right, guys? Right? Okay, whatever. So, Columbus also explored the northeast coast of Cuba, where he landed on the 28th of October. On the 22nd of November, Martín Alonso Pinzon took the Pinta on an unauthorized expedition in search of an island called Babeque or Baneque, which the natives had told him was rich in gold. Columbus, for his part, continued to the northern coast of Hispaniola, where he landed on the 5th of December. There, the Santa Maria ran aground on Christmas Day, 1492, and had to be abandoned, which is a pretty sucky Christmas, if you ask me. The wreck was used as target for cannon fire to impress the native peoples. Columbus was received by the native cacique Guacanagari, who gave him permission to leave some of his men behind. Columbus left 39 men, including the interpreter Luis de Torres, and founded the settlement of La Navidad in present-day Haiti. Columbus took more natives prisoner and continued his exploration. He kept sailing along the northern coast of Hispaniola with a single ship until he encountered Pinzon and the Pinta on the 6th of January. On 13th of January, 1493, Columbus made his last stop of the voyage in the Americas on the Bay of Rincon in northeast Hispaniola. There he encountered the warlike Quiguayos, the only natives who offered violent resistance during this voyage. The Quiguayos refused to trade the amount of bows and arrows that Columbus desired, and in the ensuing clash, one Quiguayo was stabbed in the buttocks and another wounded with an arrow in his chest. And that's a strange way to die. And because of these events, Columbus called the inlet the Bay of Buttocks. No, just kidding. He called it the Bay of Arrows. Columbus headed for Spain on the Niña, but a storm separated him from the Pinta and forced the Niña to stop at the island of Santa Maria in the Azores. Half of his crew went ashore to say prayers in a chapel to give thanks for having survived the storm. But while praying, they were imprisoned by the governor of the island because of a suspicion that they were pirates. After a 2-day standoff, the prisoners were released, and Columbus again set sail for Castile. Another storm forced Columbus into the port at Lisbon. From there he went to Valle do Paraíso, north of Lisbon, to meet King John II of Portugal, who told Columbus that he believed the voyage to be in violation of the 1479 Treaty of Alcasovas. After spending more than a week in Portugal, Columbus set sail for Castile. Returning on March 15th, 1493, he was given a warm welcome by the monarchs. Columbus's letter on the first voyage was instrumental in spreading the news throughout Europe about his voyage. Almost immediately after his arrival in Castile, printed versions began to appear. Word of his voyage quickly spread throughout Europe. Most people at first believed that he'd reached Asia. The bulls of donation, 3 papal bulls of Pope Alexander VI, delivered in 1493, granted overseas territories to Portugal and the Catholic monarchs of Spain. They were replaced by the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494, which I mentioned in the video just before the one before that one, the Banjeranchis, so go check that out. On the 24th of September 1493, Columbus sailed from Cadiz with 17 ships and supplies to establish permanent settlements in the Americas. He sailed with 1,200 men, including priests, farmers, and soldiers. The fleet stopped at the Canary Islands, continuing 3 weeks on a more southerly route than on the first voyage. On November 3rd, they arrived in the Windward Islands and landed at Marie-Galante, now part of Guadeloupe. These islands were named by Columbus on this voyage, as well as Montserrat, Antigua, St. Martin, the Virgin Islands, and many others. On the 22nd of November, Columbus returned to Hispaniola to visit La Navidad, where 39 Castilians had been left during the first voyage. Columbus found the fort in ruins, destroyed by the Taínos after some of the Castilians had formed a murderous gang in pursuit of gold and women. Columbus then established a poorly located and short-lived settlement, La Isabela, in the present-day Dominican Republic. From April to August 1494, Columbus explored Cuba and Jamaica, then returned to Hispaniola. By the end of 1494, disease and famine had killed 2/3 of the Castilian settlers. Columbus implemented encomienda, a Castilian labor system that rewarded conquerors with the labor of conquered non-Christian people. Columbus's colonists bought and sold slaves. Columbus executed Castilian colonists for minor crimes and used dismemberment as punishment. Columbus and the colonists enslaved the native people, including children. Natives were beaten, raped, and tortured for the location of imagined gold. Thousands committed suicide rather than face the oppression. But at least we know that would never happen again. In February 1495, Columbus took over 1,500 Arawaks, some of whom had rebelled. About 500 of them were shipped to Castile as slaves, with about 40% dying on the way there. In June 1495, the Spanish crown sent ships and supplies to Hispaniola. In October, Florentine merchant Gianotto Berardi received almost 40,000 maravedis worth of slaves. On March 10, 1496, after having been away for about 30 months, the fleet left La Isabela, landing in Portugal on the 8th of June. On the 30th of May, 1498, Columbus left with 6 ships from Sanlúcar, Spain. 3 of the ships headed directly for Hispaniola with much-needed supplies. Columbus took the other 3 to continue the search for a passage to continental Asia. On the 31st of July, they sighted Trinidad. On the 1st of August, the next day, they arrived near the mouth of South America's Orinoco River. Columbus correctly recognized that this must be the continent's mainland. On the 5th of August, they landed on the mainland of South America at the Paria Peninsula. Then they sailed to the islands of Chacare and Margarita and sighted Tobago and Grenada. On the 19th of August, Columbus returned to Hispaniola. There he found the settlers in rebellion against his rule and his promises of riches. Columbus, as was typical, had some of his crew hanged for disobedience. In October 1499, Columbus sent 2 ships to Spain, asking the court of Spain to appoint a royal commissioner to help him govern. By this time, accusations of tyranny and incompetence on the part of Columbus had also reached the court. The sovereigns replaced Columbus with Francisco de Bobadilla, a member of the Order of Calatrava, which was tasked with investigating accusations of brutality made against Columbus. Arriving in Santo Domingo while Columbus was away, Bobadilla was immediately met with complaints about all 3 Columbus brothers. Bobadilla reported to Castile that Columbus regularly used torture and mutilation to govern Hispaniola. According to the report, Columbus once punished a man found guilty of stealing corn by having his ears and nose cut off and then selling him into slavery. Testimony recorded in the report stated that Columbus congratulated his brother Bartolomeo on defending the family when Bartolomeo ordered a woman paraded naked throughout the streets and then had her tongue cut out for suggesting that Columbus was of lowly birth. Wow, all this over an insult. The document also describes how Columbus put down native unrest and revolt. He first ordered a brutal crackdown in which many natives were killed, and then paraded their dismembered bodies throughout the streets in an encourage to discourage further rebellion. In early October 1500, Columbus and Diego presented themselves to Bobadilla and were put in chains aboard La Gorda on Columbus's own ship. They were returned to Spain and lingered in jail for 6 weeks before King Ferdinand ordered their release. Not long after, the king and queen summoned the Columbus brothers to the Alhambra Palace in Granada. There, the royal couple heard the brothers' pleas, restored their freedom and wealth, and after much persuasion agreed to fund Columbus's fourth voyage. However, Nicolás de Ovando was to become the new governor of the West Indies. On the 11th of May, 1502, Columbus, with his brother and son, left Cadiz with his flagship Santa Maria and 3 other vessels. He sailed to Arcila on the Moroccan coast to rescue Portuguese soldiers said to have been besieged by the Muslims. On the 15th of June, they arrived at Martinique. A hurricane was brewing, so he continued on, hoping to find shelter on Hispaniola. He arrived at Santo Domingo on the 29th of June, but was denied port, and the new governor refused to listen to his storm prediction. Instead, while Columbus's ships sheltered at the mouth of the Rio Jaina, the first Castilian treasure fleet sailed into the hurricane. Columbus's ships survived with only minor damage, while 29 of the 30 ships in the governor's fleets were lost, along with 500 lives, including that of Francisco de Bobadilla, and over 10 million modern dollars worth of Columbus's gold. A fragile ship carrying Columbus's personal belongings was the only ship to return to Castile. After a brief stop at Jamaica, Columbus sailed to Central America, arriving at the coast of Honduras on the 30th of July. Here, Bartolomeo found native merchants in a large canoe. On the 14th of August, he landed on the continental mainland at Puerto Castilla, Honduras. He spent 2 months exploring the coast of Honduras, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica before arriving in Almirante, Bocas del Toro in Panama on the 16th of October. In Panama, Columbus learned from the Ngobe of gold and a strait to another ocean. In January 1503, he established a garrison at the mouth of the Belen River. Columbus left for Hispaniola on the 16th of April. On the 10th of May, he sighted the Cayman Islands, naming them Las Tortugas, after the many sea turtles there. His ship sustained damage in a storm off the coast of Cuba. Unable to travel further, on the 25th of June 1503, they were beached in St. Anne Parish, Jamaica. For 1 year, Columbus and his men remained stranded on Jamaica. A Castilian, Diego Mendez, and some natives paddled a canoe to get help from Hispaniola. The governor, Nicolás de Ovando y Cáceres, hated Columbus and blocked all efforts to rescue him and his men. In the meantime, Columbus, in a desperate attempt to get the natives to continue providing for him and his hungry men, won their favor by predicting a lunar eclipse on the 29th of February 1504 using Abraham Zacuto's astronomical charts. Help finally arrived, no thanks to the governor, on the 29th of June 1504, and Columbus and his men arrived in Sanlúcar, Spain, on the 7th of November. Columbus had always claimed the conversion of non-believers as one of the reasons for his explorations, but he grew increasingly religious in his later years. Probably with the assistance of his son Diego and his friend the Carthusian monk Gaspar Goricio, Columbus produced 2 books during the latter years. A Book of Privileges in 1502, detailing and documenting the rewards from the Spanish crown to which he believed him and his heirs were entitled, and a Book of Prophecies in 1505, in which he considered his achievements as an explorer as a fulfillment of biblical prophecy in the context of Christian eschatology and apocalypticism. In his later years, Columbus demanded that the Spanish crown give him 10% of all profits made in the new lands, as stipulated in the capitulations of Santa Fe. Because he had been relieved of his duties as governor, the crown did not feel obliged by that contract, and his demands were rejected. During a violent storm on his first return voyage, Columbus, then 41, suffered an attack of what was believed at the time to be gout. In later years, he was plagued with what was thought to be the flu and other fevers, bleeding from the eyes, being temporarily blind, and having prolonged attacks of gout. The attacks increased in length and severity, sometimes leaving him bedridden for many months, and this culminated in his death 14 years later. Based on his lifestyle and the described symptoms, modern doctors suspect that he suffered from reactive arthritis rather than gout, which is a joint inflammation caused by intestinal bacterial infections after acquiring certain sexually transmitted diseases. And this is eventually what caused his death on the 20th of May 1506 at age 54 in Valladolid in Castile. Now, of course, The voyages of Columbus are considered a turning point in world history, marking the beginning of globalization and the accompanying demographic, commercial, economic, social, and political changes that would affect Europe and Africa to a minor extent, but especially the Americas. His explorations resulted in permanent contact between the two hemispheres, and the term pre-Columbian is used to refer to the culture of the Americas before the arrival of Columbus and his European successors. The ensuing Columbian exchange saw the massive exchange of animals, plants, fungi, diseases, technologies, mineral wealth, and ideas. And of course, the rest is history. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next time.